All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on a story that's been buried for decades. It comes straight from declassified government documents, a secret experiment that was happening right under everyone's noses, hidden in plain sight. I mean, really think about that for a second. What if something you do every single day, like just listening to the radio on your way to work, was actually part of a secret government study, and you had absolutely no idea? And let's be super clear from the get-go, this isn't some wild conspiracy theory. Nope, the documents prove it happened. This is a real story that was so well hidden, it almost disappeared completely. So let's dig in and see how this whole thing was finally uncovered. Right, so how does a secret like this even get out? Well, it wasn't some big dramatic leak. It was more like a slow drip. A giant, frustrating puzzle put together one piece at a time from old, forgotten files and reports that were almost entirely blacked out. And the timeline here is just wow. Take a look. The experiment ends in 1970, but the first documents don't see the light of day until 1998. That's almost 30 years later. And the full story? We didn't get that until 2024. Think about that. Over 50 years. That's a lifetime to keep something this big under wraps. And even when those files did come out in 98, they were a mess. It was like someone took a giant black marker to every important page. You couldn't see the names, you couldn't see the locations, you couldn't even tell what the study was for. It was basically a giant nothing to see here sign, which, of course, means there's definitely something to see here. But all that black ink didn't stop everybody. It actually did the opposite for one investigative journalist. They saw those redactions and thought, okay, who are they trying to protect? And decided to start digging. And here's what they started to piece together. You've got a major federal health agency calling the shots. The lead researcher, a guy named Dr. Aris Thorne. But the most important part, the participants, they weren't volunteers who signed up for a study. They were just regular people. Thousands of them, living their lives in 3 different U.S. cities, completely in the dark. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? With all this secrecy and these high-level agencies involved, what on earth could they have been trying to figure out? Well, the investigation finally put a name to it. A name pulled right from an old, dusty memo, Project Nightingale. And what it was is pretty chilling, to be honest. Okay, get this. For 5 whole years, a government agency was secretly testing whether they could change how people behaved. We're talking about things like community involvement, even voting patterns, by hiding secret audio messages in public radio broadcasts. And the key part? Not a single person knew they were part of it. No consent, nothing. So how'd they pull it off? It was a 3-step process. First, they picked out specific neighborhoods to target. Second, they slipped these subliminal messages, audio signals so low you can't consciously hear them, into regular, popular radio shows. And third, they just sat back and watched, secretly tracking public data to see if their little audio nudges were actually working. And they were very methodical about it. It was a classic, cold, scientific setup. You had the test group in certain neighborhoods hearing the secret messages. Then you had a control group in similar neighborhoods right next door, listening to the very same radio shows, but without the hidden audio. This way, they can measure any tiny change in behavior. It was clinically precise and deeply, deeply unethical. Okay, so 5 years of secret audio messages, 5 years of covert surveillance. What actually came of it? What were the consequences? And why try so hard to keep it a secret for so long? This number is just staggering. Even after some of the documents were finally declassified, an estimated 75% of the people involved in this study were never told. Think about that. They lived their whole lives, and many probably passed away, never knowing they were human lab rats for their own government. And here is the absolute kicker. After all that, the secrecy, the ethical lines crossed, the years of research, what did they discover? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The data showed no meaningful change in behavior whatsoever. The whole risky, controversial experiment was a complete and utter failure. So if it was a failure, why bury it so deep? Well, the memos spell it out pretty clearly. It was all about CYA, cover your, They wanted to avoid a massive public scandal, protect the careers of all the officials who gave it the green light, and of course, they were terrified of getting sued. And the irony is, they said they wanted to prevent distrust in public institutions by doing something that would create massive distrust. Maybe the most damning piece of evidence comes from a memo written by the lead investigator, Dr. Thorne himself. He wrote this. He knew exactly what was at stake. The danger wasn't about physical harm. It was about something much deeper. The very idea that we have free will. It was an attack on our sense of personal freedom. And they knew it. And they did it anyway. And that really just leaves us with one big looming question. We only know about Project Nightingale because of one very stubborn journalist and a few files that slipped through the cracks. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a story this big could stay buried for 50 years, what else is still out there, just sitting in a box, waiting to be found?